Cass is running late. She is jogging to the local coffee shop she promised to meet her boyfriend by. Cass can't help but remember an earlier conversation with her friend Vicky over the phone.
You really need to start showing up on time, Cass.
After what seems like forever, Cass arrives at the coffee shop and hopes that he's still there. She catches her boyfriend looking at her, as if she just arrived on time. She sits down next to him, makes a quick order, and apologizes for being late again. He smiles and says that he understands. Before Cass knew it, she was already 30 minutes in a conversation with him. Cass felt like he was the one. He's charming, funny, and knows just what to say. When the date was about to end, he revealed that he's going to the Bahamas next week. That's when he offered her to join in.
Yeah, funny thing is, I accidentally bought 2 tickets instead of 1, so I was thinking...
Oh, I'd love to, but...
Cass wanted to say no since she has work, but remembered that her manager finally let her have time off, and it just so happens to be next week.
Well, that's great. You want in?
I'll tag along as long as you pay for the mimosas.
Cass was over the moon when her boyfriend offered an escape from the city's dreadful weather. But something seems off. It doesn't feel quite right. He's so different from the others she's dated. He seems to know her likes, dislikes, even her habits from day one. How could that be possible? Unfortunately, this is more likely than you might think. Government spy agencies, such as the National Security Agency, also known as the NSA, have a long history of workers abusing its surveillance systems. Please, sit back and relax as we explore a hypothetical scenario where an NSA employee uses this info to get the love of his life and the lengths he's willing to go to for it. Simon has been working for the NSA for 6 months now. He's heard all sorts of stories about how the NSA hunts down terrorist organizations and works behind the scenes to secure US dominance. But work is still work, no matter where you go. Simon's job is to monitor and check on the NSA's surveillance systems to see if it raises any alarms on potential terrorist activity. Sometimes, he also needs to search up information on potential suspects from the NSA's database. Of course, Simon can't tell anyone the specifics of what he does. But what he can say is that the NSA uses an information-gathering technique called SIGINT. In layman's terms, they primarily monitor anything that carries info. Phone calls from landlines. Check. Wireless signals from Wi-Fi. Absolutely. The internet's traffic from gigantic undersea cables connecting everything and everyone. You can bet that they are listening in as you watch this video. No matter how interesting the concept of wiretapping the entire internet sounds, it doesn't change the fact that Simon's life had become dreadfully dull after his girlfriend broke up with him when he joined the NSA, and he hasn't been able to find another girlfriend since. When he was working, he noticed whispers of something called Lovint. He later found out that Lovint is a practice of using surveillance data for the pursuit of love. He knew using NSA data for personal reasons is prohibited, but he's desperate to get out of this rut. Besides, what harm could a little searching do? As we are about to see, Simon will begin to engage in Lovint. He isn't the first to do it, and he definitely won't be the last. In an article from Slate in 2013, NSA Chief General Keith Alexander admitted that there were 12 substantiated cases of willful violations over 10 years, essentially 1 per year. And according to an NSA audit of spring 2012, it found 2,776 cases of unauthorized collection, storage, access to, or distribution of legally protected communications from the last 12 months. Even if those cases aren't all Lovint incidents, it gives a glimpse into the rampant surveillance abuse of spy agencies like the NSA. Simon got to work using Lovint. He is determined to get the love of his life, in spite of the risks involved. He went on social media to list 10 women he found attractive and dig up any identifiable information he could find on them, such as their full name, phone number, and email address. Simon punched in that data into the NSA's search tool. Its interface is similar to Google Search, but much more powerful. Since he can't choose just one woman based on looks, he decided to narrow his options based on how well their interests align with his. And what better way to learn of someone's interests than by going through their search history? It took a while to sift through the random queries and exclude some not safe for work searches. But Simon successfully ranked all of the women based on their likes and dislikes. After taking their interests into account, Cass Williams is the best of all other candidates.
Cass Williams. What a wonderful name.
Simon's eyes light up with excitement as he reviews her info. Before he meets her in person, he wants to know her as much as he can. Using location data from her phone, he gets a clear picture of where she goes and the routes she took to get there. Using this data, he noticed that she goes to a book club every Saturday. Simon also learns that she likes to buy high fantasy novels and short horror stories online by seeing order confirmations through the emails she receives. Simon could go on for days reading all about her, but he discovered that she has been calling someone from the book club, and she has been calling him a lot. That someone is a person named Nick, a newcomer to the book club. Simon knows that if he doesn't act fast, Nick will steal her heart before Simon even meets her. Immediately after finding out that Nick is a threat to his relationship with Cass, he signed up to the book club and began monitoring all communications between them. He took notes about everything they said. Simon identified that Nick and Cass like to talk about fantasy a lot, but Nick avoids horror like the plague and refuses to talk about it with Cass. By the time the book club accepted his request to join, he had already read up on Cass's favorite novels and even read some of her wish-listed books for good measure. The first day was a clean sweep. Simon introduced himself to Cass, and on the first day, they immediately connected over horror novels, and Nick wasn't able to talk to Cass at all. From then on, Simon and Cass called more and more. At work, Simon could see that Nick and Cass's conversations became less and less frequent. Before long, Simon and Cass are already on their third date together. Simon found it difficult to find quality time together since they are both busy people. He noticed that Cass had finally got a week-long vacation from her manager after weeks of asking, and that she was telling her friend Vicky all about it shortly after. Simon sensed an opportunity. He requested 1 week's vacation and 2 tickets to the Bahamas.
Hey Cass, before I go, I'd like to tell you that I'm going to the Bahamas next week.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I wish I could get a bit of sun after last week's weather.
Yeah, funny thing is, I accidentally bought 2 tickets instead of 1, so I was thinking...
Oh, I'd love to, but...
Hmm?
Now that I think about it, I scheduled vacation next week.
Well, that's great. You want in?
I'll tag along as you pay for the mimosas.
Using Lovint, Simon gained access to others' most sensitive information and used it to gain an advantage in finding love. Those who are attentive would notice that Lovint is essentially cyberstalking. In a sense, this is correct. However, we must point out that Lovint goes beyond what others can do to stalk their lovers. Even though the concept of someone having access to your search history is a horrifying thought in of itself, try to imagine that same person also knowing about all the conversations you've had, your banking information, and even your location in real time. No matter how much cyberstalking a person does, they cannot hope to match the volume and detail of the information that Lovint provides. Furthermore, we also discover that Simon's data can be used for purposes other than getting Cass to fall in love with him. Simon's use of the NSA's surveillance tools allowed him to notice his romantic rival Nick. Then, he uses that data to decisively outcompete Nick without even meeting him. People like Nick stand no chance against someone with the power of the NSA. However, I'm sure some may argue that there is nothing wrong with knowing more about their lovers, that Lovint isn't harming anyone, and that it's common for people to use underhanded tactics to compete for love. To answer this argument, let us follow this story to its conclusion. Simon is at the airport waiting for Cass. Everything he's done so far has fallen into place. It's almost as if he can see into the future. He closes his eyes and predicts that Cass will show up around 20 minutes late.
Hey there, sweetie.
Oh, hey there, Cass. I didn't expect you to make it so early.
What do you mean? I made it on time, didn't I?
Oh, sorry. I usually thought you'd show up a bit later than usual.
Huh. Surprised you didn't I? I'm starting to break out of that habit.
Well, I'm glad that you made it.
By the way, thank you so much for letting me join in. You couldn't believe how much I wanted to get some sun.
No need to thank me. Thank your manager for finally giving that vacation you've always wanted.
There was a pause. Cass's joyful expression shifted to suspicion. Simon can predict everything about Cass, but he can't predict how this mistake will cost him.
Wait, how did you know about that?
Didn't you tell me about it? Back at the coffee shop?
I told you that I got a week off, but never anything related to my manager.
I heard it from your friend Vicky. She said that you finally convinced your manager to get time off.
What? Hold on, how do you know about Vicky? She's in a completely different city.
She doesn't have all the details, but what she does know is to get out of there.
Wait, where are you going?
Sorry, I can't. I don't want to go anymore.
Cass is sprinting to the exit. Simon is powerless to stop her. Simon never felt so embarrassed in his entire life. His face is red with anger. For the first time, he's unable to predict what Cass will do next. The next day, Simon returned to the office and went right to getting information about Cass. As he feared, Cass has already called Vicky.
Your boyfriend, Simon? No, never met him before. Why?
Even worse, she called Nick for 2 whole hours yesterday. Simon didn't need to listen in to know that Cass was talking about him.
That son of a bitch!
He raced to get intel on Nick. He wants to know 2 things: his location data and the data of the people closest to him. He worked hard to get Cass, and he won't let Nick take her away.
She'll love me eventually. Cass is mine. I'll threaten them all. Cass is mine. I'll make him pay. No one can stop me. I'll threaten them all. She'll love me. Cass is no one can stop. I'll make him pay. She'll love me eventually. I'll threaten them all.
Simon,
Huh? Hey, boss, what's up?
we've received reports that you're looking through data you're not supposed to. Can you follow me to my office?
Simon's story ends here. When questioned, he confessed to gathering information on multiple women. He pleaded that no harm was done and curiosity motivated him. The NSA promptly demoted him, gave him more work to do, docked his wages, and more importantly, revoked his access to surveillance tools. He later resigned, knowing that he'll never get close to that information again. Although Simon's practice of Lovint was short-lived, it can go on for much longer. The longest an NSA employee abused surveillance tools was 5 years, where he monitored 9 phone numbers until he was caught. If Simon's boss hadn't stepped in, Simon could have done real harm to Nick and endangered those around him. And I'm sure some of you may say that Simon got off easy for what he'd done. Unfortunately, this is actually the harshest sentence we are aware of for this kind of behavior. Shockingly, abusers tend to resign or retire to escape punishment altogether when they are caught. Looking back, we see how Simon used the NSA's databases and surveillance capabilities to conduct Lovint to secure a relationship with Cass and beat out rivals like Nick in the process. Not only that, this information could be used to cause harm to anyone, like Simon's plan to ambush Nick and his willingness to leak life-ruining information of people who have nothing to do with this. The scariest part about all of this is that nobody would have known if Simon was more careful. The only time Cass's suspicion of Simon spying on her was when he slipped up at the airport. And even though the NSA has measures put in place to detect unauthorized data retrieval, no system is ever truly foolproof. You might even be dating someone who has access to your email, phone, and search history, without you knowing. Although it's frustrating to hear that love int is difficult to deal with, you shouldn't give up hope. Like many issues that are difficult to address, one thing is almost certain. Those who have more money and power tend to fare better than those who don't. Power and wealth can help insulate you from disaster, and at a certain point, it could make you practically untouchable. If you don't have it, you could end up like Nick, a soon-to-be victim. If you don't have money and power, then a good first step to getting it would be to acquire knowledge. And what better way to amass knowledge than Amazon Kindle? It's an ocean of information at your fingertips that could help you achieve your goals and gain the ability to avoid potential disaster. I recommend The Little Book of Common Sense Investing. It's a starter guide on how to put your money to work by investing, which can help you set yourself up for success. And remember, your privacy matters.